Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. It is December 28th, and I hope you're having a good one. It's here in between Christmas and New Year's. There should be a name for this week. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio is powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. John, the producer at the wheels, keeping us between the white lines on the program today. Looking forward to talking to Mike DeCourcy, Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com. And who else do I have, John Boy?
We'll have Tyler Smith with us and Chris Denari.
Chris Denari, that's who I was forgetting. My bad. I knew something was slipping my mind. Lots to talk about. Plenty of bowl games. A lot of bowls to eat out of today, and they continue to come at us more each and every day throughout this next week or so. Talk about some fun games last night. Of course, USC took on Louisville, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech, Tulane. I missed one. Oh, yeah. And no, that was West Virginia in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. And, you know, the winning coach in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, instead of getting the old-fashioned Gatorade bath, they get this set-up thing where they dump a big old vat of Duke's mayonnaise on him, which I think that the losing coach should get the Duke's Mayo bath. That would be more apropos, I think, John Boy.
I agree with you actually on this, because as somebody who doesn't like mayonnaise and certainly wouldn't want mayonnaise dumped on them,
oh, man.
I think I'd be more motivated to win the game if I knew that I wasn't going to be getting a mayonnaise bath.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I won't say there's a lot of people that don't like mayonnaise, I guess, but there are people that don't like mayonnaise, and probably to the point to where they would rather it not even be on them, much less eating it. But
also, did you know that for the Holiday Bowl this year, the winning coach got dumped eggnog on them, an eggnog bath?
Oh, man.
So that poses the question, which is more disgusting, and mayonnaise or an eggnog bath?
I'll tell you, the eggnog bath would not be bad at first, because you could, it's not bad if it's on you, taste it or whatever. But, you know, when that dries, I'm assuming that's a milk-based product. And if it is a milk-based product, when that dries, that's like when the Indy 500 winners, when they all dump the milk over the top of their heads. You know, do you have any idea, which I know most of you do, how bad milk stinks when it's drying out? It's horrible. So, yeah, that's not like anything else. So, yeah, wow. I don't know. I would go with the eggnog actually, though, and just wash it after I was done. But yeah, that's unique. I did not know that. But welcome aboard. We appreciate everybody being with us as always. Looking forward to talking to Mike and Tyler and Chris, catching up with everybody, see how they are doing. Lots of football games, like I talked about, on the docket last night, today, tomorrow. Basketball for the Hoosiers as they hit the hardwood again tomorrow night for the final time in the non-conference. Almost want to say preseason. It's not preseason. It's pre-conference, as they will pick up Big Ten play on the backside of this game with Nebraska on the road. So Looking forward to getting to that. Indiana takes on a Kennesaw State team tomorrow night, and I think that you will see Xavier Johnson play. That is my thought. I think that they've held him out. He could not go for the Kansas game. And once that was the case, I think that there was no reason to play him prior. I don't know for a fact that he'll go Friday night, but I'm just assuming that he will, to try to knock a little rust off before they get into Big Ten play. That's my thought on that, but we shall see. And so we'll find out. But yeah, last night, USC and Louisville in what bowl game was that, John?
That was the Holiday Bowl. That was the game where the winner got the eggnog dunked on him.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, that was that one.
I missed that. I'll be darned. So that means your boy USC's Lincoln Riley got eggnogged.
He did. I didn't see a video of it, but that was supposedly the case.
Well, that's probably because the biggest story in that game was the fact that USC won handily without their Heisman winning quarterback, Caleb Williams, who was there and on the sideline, but opting out. My favorite term now, opting out. Yeah, I'd like to opt out sometimes, but it drives me insane. But I get it. There's two sides to that argument. It sucks, and I hate it. But then you look at a game like Texas A&M, who played yesterday also, as they lose by a single score to Oklahoma State after losing their quarterback on the very first play of the game. Now, you're going to have every guy point to that, especially quarterbacks, and they'll point to that right there and say, now that's why I'm not playing in this bowl game. But what if you're a playoff team? Playoffs? Can you imagine? Do we have any playoff teams that have any serious opt-outs?
Not that I'm aware of. Most of these, I mean, they're still playing for something, and it would make sense that they didn't.
Well, my point is, if they're staying for these games, what is it that's making them stay? I mean, I get that what they're playing for, but I don't. Why?
I gotta say, it is silly to me too that there are
if
so
it's that
many
big
of
a
them.
deal, if they're truly worried about getting injured, then why are they so?
Because not only are you playing additional games, you're playing potentially 2 additional games, and it all still comes down to your pro career. If that's you, I mean, that's usually what people are worried about. Like if you have a detrimental injury and that ruins your chances at maybe not making it, but having a successful career in the NFL. I mean, that's ultimately what it usually comes down to. And it's, I think I'm with you. I don't understand why they're so worried. I mean, if you're so worried, why play the entire regular season? It wouldn't surprise me if some of these players, if they're so worried about it, why don't they just play, I don't know, 3/4 of the season? They're like, you know what? I've got enough tape for the draft scouts. Let's
why
just
play in
the
conference
season here.
championships?
Yeah. Why do any of that extra stuff?
Yeah, I hate the opt-out, and which started a few years ago. We started seeing that, and I hate it, and as does every other sports fan. But there's nothing you're going to do about it. I overheard someone say they're going to have to stop all this, paying these guys. What's going to happen is someone's going to give someone a Maserati and they're going to go out and have a wreck and yada yada. I'm like, buddy, you're not getting this toothpaste back in the tube. This is how it's going to be from now on. And the only thing I could imagine, for as far as opt-outs, the only thing I can see happening is if there comes a time where in the world of NIL, somehow these guys are contractually contracted to play in all the games, but then you're just going to have fake injuries or whatever else comes up. There's always going to be a way out. But I can honestly say this: student athletes have gone from having virtually no control to having all the control. All the control. And they control if they play, they control if they're paid, they can control where they play. And if the NCAA is not able to secure some kind of legislation regarding, these second time transfers, these multiple transfers, then you're going to have a situation where an athlete could go play 4 different years at 4 different schools. That's a little too much freedom to me. That's not something that a normal student is very likely to do. A normal student is not. Can they do it? Yeah, they could, but it would be hard as hell. You got to get your credits transferred to all different schools. That's not something that a normal student is going to do. And the only reason that student athletes would be doing it would be for athletic reasons only. And so that's an argument that you can fight up one side and down the other. Like I said, I could argue both sides of a lot of these things, but it's how it is at the moment, and nothing is going to change until it's changed. So there's that to look forward to. But big news for Indiana football is another big-time offensive lineman is coming back, and Mike Kadick. He was one of Indiana's star linemen last year, and he will be coming back for a sixth season to play under Coach Kurt Cignetti. He had entered his name was going to enter in the NFL draft, but is withdrawing his name from NFL consideration and will be playing on Bob Bostad's offensive line next year. So things continue looking good for Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana football program, as some of these guys coming back, man. They got to love it. But we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network joins us next. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the
Did it snow there, John Boy?
We are supposed to get a little bit today, but it's also not going to get below 32, so it's not going to accumulate anything. So yet to have a measurable snow in the Kentuckiana area. But actually, I saw this a few weeks ago. The average, the earliest measurable snowfall usually happens the day after Christmas on average. So we're already late on that regard.
2 whole days.
2 whole days. We'll see when I don't know. I'm surprised we haven't had any snow, really. I mean, we had some flurries a couple weeks ago, but that doesn't do anything.
It's in the 50s where I am.
We'll have
cold and raining.
Real snow. Yeah. Cold and rainy is annoying.
Yeah,
yeah, Mike will be on. He's not on yet, but he will be on. So in the meantime, we have 20 seconds, and he'll be with us shortly.
$199. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040.
He's here,
the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. It's December 28th as we are in between Christmas and New Year's. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to Mike DeCourcy, who joins us now from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
I cannot complain. Just enjoying the days and a little cool temperatures, some rain where I am, and into each life a little rain must fall, though, right?
You got. Did you just come up with that? Is that all yours?
Yeah. Just right off the top of my head, boy, that just flows out there.
Good stuff.
But bowl games going on, extravagances, basketball getting ready to get back or get into Big Ten or conference play all the way around. But lots talking about in the bowl games. Would you rather be doused with eggnog or mayonnaise?
Oh, wow. I mean, that is a grim choice. But I'm going to go with, if I had to have one or the other, I would probably go with the eggnog.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I'm like, at least you could lick that off your fingers. I'm not opposed to mayonnaise, but it's not like it's something I'm eating spoons full of, so I don't like it that much. But the winner of the Duke's Mayo Bowl gets doused with Duke's mayonnaise. I think that it should be the losing coach who gets doused with the mayonnaise. I'm like, man.
I am not. You don't have any mayonnaise sponsors, right?
Nope.
Oh, so I'm allowed to say that I can't stand it. I don't want it anywhere near me.
I talked earlier. We were talking about it. I said, there's people that just don't like mayonnaise and they don't want it on them even. So
no.
I get that, and I could not imagine being a coach in that situation because that's one of those things you got to do because the players are going to kill you if you don't.
Yes. But I thought that the coach from West Virginia, I think his name's Neil Brown. I think that's
yes.
Yeah, very strategically with the hat and the lower. What I got from that was that he doesn't like mayonnaise much more than I do, if at all. Because he quite clearly wanted to avoid any facial contact with it, and he was successful.
Yeah, I think he did some film study. There was some film work on prior games on that. He'd seen the previous mistakes made here and there. He goes, all right, I've got this situation under control. But a good game there as West Virginia pretty much handled North Carolina, surprisingly a little bit surprised to see that. But a good, fun game to watch. USC just winning easily over Louisville, who was mostly intact. But USC, of course, going without the Heisman winning quarterback and his replacement, no big deal. 6 touchdowns.
Yes. Louisville did not finish the season very emphatically, much like Carolina really struggled at the end of the year. They did do a good defensive job in the ACC championship game against Florida State, but it wasn't that difficult to do that against Florida State's third-team quarterback. But they came back last night and they were very poor in terms of stopping the Trojans. And offensively, they had a really nice running game going, but couldn't convert big third downs. I thought at times made some really meager decisions, to be honest with you. I thought punting, I think it was about a 4th and 4 situation, if I remember correctly, from their own. They were around the 50. I can't remember which side, but they punted and they were already down 2 touchdowns. And it's like, really? I mean, you're going to put yourself in a position to go down 3. Now that was the play that preceded the pick that turned into their next score, but I still thought that it was a decision, the kind of decision that you can't make in a bowl game where you just got to let it go. And that's what SC did. They just let it fly. And they already had lost 6 games, I think. So what was another? And I thought that it was a mistake for Louisville to play somewhat conservatively in various situations.
Yeah, once what was Moss, I think, was the quarterback's name for USC. Man, it was like once he got into a rhythm and got some confidence, it was Katie bar the door. I'm like, he was setting records, bowl records, I think, program records. He's been sitting behind a Heisman winning quarterback, and then okay, you got to come in and play. Oh, you're just going to break every record, every bowl record, the bowl record for touchdown passes and all that. It's crazy how we see things like that happen. A guy who has not really been a part of the system as far as the main play comes in and does something so spectacular at such a spectacular time.
Well, sometimes it's helpful to not for a team for the team in question for the opposition not to have a book on that player. They hadn't seen him. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what he was capable of doing, what he was good at. They may have recruited him or scouted him at some point in high school, or they may not have, because there's so many. The universe of high school football players is so vast, so they may never have seen him or very limited. And so when you're in that situation, it's an advantage. It's like that in all levels of football. We've seen that in the NFL at times when a player will come in and there hasn't been a real book on what he's capable of. And then all of a sudden he's having a great game. And then once teams start to catch up a little bit, see film, and then they're able to say, okay, well, here's where we can beat this guy. Louisville didn't have time to adjust that. And what time they did have at halftime of the bowl game, they didn't use emphatically enough. They did come up with that big interception, and that nearly got them back into the game, but it didn't quite do the job.
No, but it gave Big Ten fans a taste of what they're going to see next year, as they will get more eyes on Mr. Moss, I'm assuming. I hate seeing the opt-outs. I hate the term opt-out. It drives me insane. I know that all sports fans, no one likes it. I get it in a way. And especially, I pointed out earlier that every guy that does that is going to point to the Texas A&M game, who the very first play of the game, they lost their quarterback last night or yesterday. And it's a freak accident. It can happen at any time. But gee whiz, you'd sure like to see these teams be able to finish the season as the same team.
But it just shows you, Jim, what a sham the bowls have been forever. I mean, it's not a. You've never seen a player. We have yet to see a player. I can't say it'll never happen, but we have never seen a player opt out of a real championship. No one's ever opted out of the NCAA tournament after playing a full season. They may get injured or whatever, but they don't say, I'm just not playing in that tournament. That I don't care about whether our team wins an NCAA. Never seen it. And I don't think we'll see that next year when the playoff goes to 12, because it's a real championship at that point. And even the semi-real college football playoff to date, the 4-team invitational, has never had an opt-out. So I think that's what this is showing us, that the bowls have always been exhibition games, that if the kid wants to go, if the kid's been making NIL money now and he's got an agent or whatever, and he wants to go to Southern California for a few days at the beach, he can do that. He doesn't have to play football to do it. I've never been a fan of the bowls. I always believe that the bowls are about the bowls. There's an oft-repeated quote. Speaking of little cliches that you started the show with, there's an oft-repeated quote: "The bowls have been good for college football." Never true. The bowls have been good for the bowls and the people who run the bowls, and maybe the communities in which they reside, and depending on the bowl, occasionally a charity. But they're not good for college football. College football would have long since been better served to have had a real championship playoff. The bowls held that back. So in no way have the bowls been good for the sport itself. Community, charity, the bowl directors, those guys in bad blazers, yeah, that it's been good for them, but not for the game.
Do they wear the hats with the fez?
No,
kidding.
That's different.
Just kidding. Just kidding. But it goes right to your point before you joined us. When I was talking to John, I said, are there any major opt-outs that I'm not aware of for the college football playoffs? I can't think of any.
No.
I mean, everybody that I know is playing. So that proves your point. And I was going down the same road earlier. I'm like, if it matters, they're playing.
Yes.
And that's the case. And you much more eloquently stated it, but that's, at the end of the day, that's the gist. If it matters, they're going to play. Like last night, the USC game, you see Caleb Williams, he's right there on the sideline. He's with them. I'm just not playing in this game. I don't want to get hurt.
Right.
It's not worth it to me. And it's not. You've already lost, like you said, you've lost 5 or 6 games, however many they'd already lost. Why would he play when I'm months away from being drafted for millions of dollars?
Yeah. I mean, he's looking at being the number 1 overall selection, and the only thing that could interrupt that is an injury. Now, and it would have to be severe. Now, the fact he didn't play last night does not mean he is now protected from now until April 15th or 20th or whatever from injury. Every time he goes into training, he risks an injury. Every time he goes and puts his skills on display in a pro day, he risks an injury. It's just the way it is. The great defensive lineman for Tennessee, Jeffrey Simmons, I believe, if I remember correctly, played in his bowl game and then went and injured himself training and became a second-round pick, which cost him money, but it was great for Tennessee because they got one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL as a second-round pick. It just sometimes it happens that a player gets injured in simple training. It can happen, and so Caleb Williams is not now immune from something that could disrupt his availability or his desirability for the teams taking the early picks. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, oh gosh darn it, I forgot what I was going to say there, but I lost my train of thought. But opt-outs are what they are. They're here to stay. They're not going to change, and that's just how that's going to be.
But there are going to be fewer next year, Jim, and you know how I know?
Because there's going to be 12 teams playing in the playoffs.
There you go. There you go. That's why. That is why.
And that will, yes, and that will be a much more funner situation. And then, boy, what happens on the backside of that 12, though? Are we going to see more guys? Probably not, though, because there's not going to be that many guys on those teams that are NFL type guys if they're not playing there.
There'll probably still be as many. I don't see any reason why it won't escalate. But I do wonder at some point whether those who sign players to these NIL deals will require participation in the bowl game. You could do that. I mean, I haven't seen that yet, but if I were signing a player to an NIL deal, I think that that might be something I'd consider. I think that the problem with doing that is that if you do it and the other school offering a little bit less maybe doesn't require it, then you look at it and you think, okay, that little gamble at the end, is it worth it to make another 50K? They might say no. And that's why we probably won't see teams, programs, what do you call it, collectives, why we probably won't ever see them require that.
Yeah, the transfer rule, the NCAA now having problems being sued by players wanting to transfer a second, which will ultimately that will turn into a third, a fourth time. The players will have gone from having very little control in things to having virtually all of the control. Where they play, when they play, how much they play for, what schools they play for, how many different schools they play for. Is that too much freedom?
Well, I just think the question for me is, what is the value? What is the value and what is the cost? The cost is potentially educational success, because the colleges have not changed for the most part. Some have. For the most part, colleges have not changed their attitudes toward transfer credits. The vast majority of transfer students still lose academic credits when they transfer. So if you have gone to State U for 2 years and you've accumulated 60 credits, and then you choose to transfer because you're not playing enough or because you can get a better NIL deal to State Tech, you might lose 20 credits depending on the school. And then now you're behind. Instead of being ahead because you had summers to get ahead, now you're behind. And if you transfer again, you lose more credits, then you fall behind again. And you may never wind up getting a degree. The truth is, Jim, if you are a Division I athlete especially in what we're talking about, a high revenue sport, men's basketball, women's basketball, football. If you are an athlete in one of those sports and you go 4 years to a university, you have to try to not graduate. You have to actively work to undermine yourself to not graduate, because you get all those summers to accumulate extra credits, in addition to all the academic advisors that you have. You literally almost have to try to not graduate in 4 years if you play those sports at a major Division I school, at a Power 5, Power 6 type school. And so once you start introducing transferring to that, that's when it starts to potentially decline. And that's always been my concern about the immediate eligibility transfer. Not the game or anything like that, but that's my primary concern. And I have not seen anything to indicate that that's not going to be problematic. We're very young in this endeavor, but I think we'll start to see graduation rates decline as a result of the number of players who are transferring in those sports.
We're on the same page. Before you joined us, when I was talking about this a little bit, that's pretty much what I harped on, was that this is not something that the normal student would do. A normal student is not going to go from one school to one school to one school to school because of that very reason. I go, if they have any intention on graduating, you're not making it easier on yourself. You're making it that much more difficult. So it's not something a normal student would do, which is kind of how student athletes have always been judged. Is this something a normal student would get? Well, this is not something a normal student would do. So we'll hope that it controls itself. But we've got lots more coming up. Basketball talk. Indiana back on the court tomorrow. Purdue is number 1. Florida Atlantic are they going to be the darling again as they're rolling up? So lots more to talk about. Mike DeCourcy with the Sporting News and Big Ten Network with us. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I think you see Xavier Johnson tomorrow night.
Oh,
in a
good.
limited role. That's just me guessing. Based on I would be surprised if he doesn't play.
Well, that'll help a lot for the Hoosiers. And it obviously is great for Xavier to see him out there.
And that's not going to be an easy game at Nebraska, which I know it's Nebraska, but let me tell you, it's not your grandpa's Nebraska basketball team.
I came into the year thinking they were going to be good, and they had a big test at home against Creighton, and they just got smoked. And so I thought maybe that I'd been overzealous or whatever. I'm still not totally sold because they still haven't beaten great opposition, but they played pretty good basketball. I understand why he scheduled the way he did, because he needs to build some confidence and belief in this program, in this team, and figured that he could rely on the Big Ten to be the Big Ten it's been for the last 4 years. And in the end, what's interesting, Jim, is that people looked at some of the early performances of the league and said, it's not good. It's not great. It's not, it's clearly not as good as it's been for the previous 4 years in terms of non-conference performance. But they are still right now the number 2 conference in the net. They have the second best winning percentage. They have the second best net ranking. And by far the second best winning percentage. I mean, no one's close to the Big 12. They're at 79.5, but then it's the Big 10 at 74.4, and nobody else is above 72. Nobody else even reaches 72 in terms of their winning percentage. So even in a year when the Big 10 hasn't played quite to the same degree that they did over the previous 4, they're still basically in the same spot.
Consistency.
Yeah. So maybe if Nebraska goes out and has a big league season, they can get in. I still don't think that the teams that are counting on getting in at 500 are going to be happy in the end. I think it's going to have to be better than that. But
there's too much parity now in college basketball. There are too many teams that are going to do something to get someone's attention that just separates them from that Mendoza line.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to be better than 500. But I don't know. The right teams, some of those teams, if they need it, might be able to get an 11-9. I think Nebraska's probably going to have to do at least 12-8 and in the right 12-8.
All right, here we go, guys. Just a few seconds. .com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of Wow Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Thursday, December 28th. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network with us as college basketball is not taking exactly a hiatus, but a little bit of a break through the holiday season. A nice little break as college football starts to wrap things up with the multitude of bowl games that are going to be on each and every day. But that picks back up this weekend. Indiana, one of the teams that they're closing out their non-conference slate with a contest against Kennesaw State on Friday before they head back into Big Ten play, I should say, with a game on the road at Nebraska. And this is I've said it earlier, Mike. I think that you'll see Xavier Johnson playing this game. I don't know how much. I can't imagine it's going to be a typical full workload, but I don't know the exact nature of if he's 100%, if he's 90%, whatever that he's going to be. But I do think that you will see him play, which is important for Indiana to get a little bit of a taste of getting this this team back that they're going to have going forward. But it has been good. I think it has been good for the team and for the fact of getting Gabe Cupps a lot of experience that he's going to be able to use now coming off of the bench in Big Ten play, which this is just like Jalen Hood-Schifino last year. Xavier, not by choice, is giving guys opportunities to grow under him in multiple ways. And unfortunately, his injuries has been one of those. But this is going to greatly benefit, especially for a freshman like Gabe Cupps, who certainly did not expect to have all that pressure on him that soon. But in the long term, I think it's going to be beneficial for the Hoosiers.
Well, I think it'll definitely help Gabe in the long term. But what you want, ideally, is you want to get Xavier back to being able to play as a full-time starter, and then Gabe being able to play as a 10-minute relief for Xavier, and then maybe, depending on if he's shooting the ball well, 6 to 8 minutes playing off the ball. That would be the ideal, give or take. And so his experience as a full-time point guard is certainly going to serve him well. And he did very well in the Kansas game. I don't think that he was a problem in the inability to hold that lead. I thought that he did his job as well as he could be asked to do it in that circumstance. He held up 37 minutes. He only turned over the basketball one time. The ball flowed through the offense reasonably well. The problem that happens with him having to do that is that he isn't focusing on shooting the basketball. And for a team that has limited perimeter options from deep, to not get really anything out of him diminishes them as a team. And so that's where if Xavier Johnson had been able to play his normal 30 minutes, and then Gabe is able to play off the ball and play a little bit as a backup, you might get a couple of threes out of him, and then all of a sudden they're a different team. So we'll see whether or not Xavier's able to get back to his normal self, or how long it takes for that to happen. But I'll tell you this, Jim, Kennesaw State is not, they've had some trouble, Indiana has, with some of their mid and low major opponents. They had to work really hard to beat Harvard. They had a great second half and did it. They had to work really hard to beat Moorhead. Kennesaw is on that level. They're a team that was in the tournament a year ago and should have or could have beaten Xavier in the first round. So it's a good basketball team. And so you're going to have to play well in this game in order to succeed. It's a home game. It's a bye game, but they are playing a pretty good class of bye opponents. I think that's one of the differences from now to the prior regime, whereas you're playing a lot of those 350s before. Now you're playing teams that either have been in the NCAAs or could be in the NCAAs. And so it's not easy. And to beat them helps you because in the end, your power rankings go up. Your quad victories are in better order. You got more quad twos and more quad threes than you have quad fours. So all that can help them, but they have to continue to win those games. And of course, Kennesaw is probably the last of them. So it's one last opportunity for them to show that they can handle a high-end mid-major.
Yeah, and I mentioned how it's beneficial to Gabe Cupps to have gotten this additional play in this early part of the season. I think it's also been beneficial to Trey Galloway. It has put more pressure on him, but he has responded in some ways. He's had the best game of his career. I don't know if this is going to help him going forward now, because now if Xavier's able to come back, that will take a lot of that pressure off of him, and maybe he can still play at a higher level from what he has been.
Well, I don't think it takes any of the pressure off of Trey to score. I don't think it does. I think the question is, can they continue and will they continue to run the same actions that wrecked a great college defender in Kevin McCullers? I mean, that guy's somebody that was nominated or was in the discussions a year ago for Defensive Player of the Year, and he destroyed it. Maybe made it so that he's not going to be in the conversation for those awards this year because he did such a great job. But a lot of it was Trey finishing, but some of it was them running great actions in order to get Trey screened for and on the move toward the goal downhill. That was a lot of what happened for him in that game. So they have to be able to continue to run the same stuff with Xavier if the opportunity presents itself. And Gabe was obviously did a really nice job of initiating those actions and making the pass when it was required. And of course, as I said, Trey did a great job of finishing. I think it's still imperative that he be one of your top scorers, certainly your top perimeter scorer. You're still going to get a lot of buckets out of Ware and Renew, but you need Trey to make shots and to score. Right now, he's averaging 10 points a game. That's really not the right number for him on a successful IU team. Some of that is that he was struggling with his shot. Some of that was that they weren't doing as good a job in other games of executing as they did against Kansas. But really, they need, in order for them to be successful, they're probably going to need him to score 13, 14 most nights. Now, he may never get that average up to there because of where it's been, but that's got to be, like in Big Ten play, his conference average is going to have to be in that neighborhood for them to be successful in the league. It's just because they just don't have enough other weapons. They have some very good weapons, but there's no one else on the perimeter that's capable of that kind of regularity. Mbako can certainly deliver at times when his shot's dropping, but he doesn't have the ability to play on the move that Trey does or to play on the run that Trey does. And they're going to need that out of him in order to win in the Big Ten.
Yeah, ironically, normally you'd get points from that position from the perimeter, but Trey's gotten most of his by slashing and driving and finding those open seams, not from the perimeter per se.
Right. And now he started off really struggling as a shooter after making I saw him make a beautiful three in that opening game. And I thought, okay, this is what we're going to against Florida Gulf Coast. And I thought this is what we're going to need to see from him. And it's one of the only 3-pointers he made really until he got to Kansas. But his last 3 games in a row have been 2 of 4. All the 2 of 4s that KU can get from him, they'll take them. If that's his baseline, and it could be 2 of 5, but if that's his baseline, he's making a couple and he's not having to take 8 to get there. That'll really help them. If he can get it up to 3 on occasion, all the better. But they can't have him going basically 2 months and making 3 shots, which is what happened at the start of the season before KU came to town. He was, he made 3 threes in the first 4 games and then didn't make any through the next 5. That just they can't sustain that kind of drought in Big Ten play. They need him to be regularly producing from out there.
Something else, though, the last few games, teams have, I don't want to say, I hate to use the word blueprint, but they have found a way to try to contain Khalil Ware, well, at least everywhere except from the free throw line. If he gets there, he's good. But they've been able to keep his scoring to a minimum impact of the last couple of games, which Indiana's going to have to find a way around that. That's a weapon that they need.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think some of that is everybody has to pick what they want to stop. And when you have 4 capable offensive players, 5 when you get Xavier back, you have 5 guys at that point that can all score at 18 to 20 points in a game because they've all done it. And so a team has to say, okay, we're going to try to stop this first and then that second. And then eventually, does third hurt you? If you're successful at stopping those things, does the third option hurt you? And in this case, in the Kansas case, third, what they probably tried to take away third was Trey, and it nearly beat them. The teams have been able to make it difficult for Khalil to get the ball. Certainly, Auburn did that. Kansas did that to a lesser extent, but they were successful defending him. Moorhead, in particular, really made it hard for him to get the ball, but they also gave up things. I think a lot of that comes from, excuse me, Indiana's struggle to shoot the ball from deep. You can sag off more. You can play drop coverage and make it hard for him to roll because you're not as worried about being beaten from the perimeter. The best antidote for Indiana to deal with the increased attention that Ware is getting is to make perimeter jump shots. If they start to do that at a high level, then teams will stop ganging up to the extent that they do now on Khalil Ware.
Let's see. And then some of the games that are coming up this weekend, any favorites that you're looking forward to watching?
You know, it's not an extraordinary schedule, but we are seeing Pac-12 play start tonight with UCLA, Oregon, and USC at Oregon State. So those games, you know, this is our last ride in the Pac-12, and so I'm.
Well, the Pac-12. Any chance the Pac-12 has a season like they have had in football this year?
They are not having that season at all. They are struggling terribly. UCLA is struggling. USC, which was supposed to be very good, and I was buying into that. I thought they had the goods to be a terrific team. It's not happened at all. Now, they missed Bronny James for the first month or so, 6 weeks, and it certainly impacted them. But they should have been able to win a lot of the games that they lost, even without him. They've got an elite freshman point guard named Isaiah Collier and a very capable senior scorer, Boogie Ellis, but it hasn't helped enough to win consistently. I think they're only 6-5. UCLA offensively really struggles. Defensively, they're playing fine, but they can't score at all. And I think they're 5-6 at this point. So it's not going to be a great Pac-12 season that like the football has had. But still, conference play is always fun. And the opportunity to get those teams out there for one last go. The Pac-12 was always one of my favorite leagues because they played those Thursday, Saturdays, so you knew who was going to be playing who, you knew where they were going to be playing. You knew the games were going to be on late, so you could watch. So there'll always be a good live late game for those of us who would stay up for that. I've sort of stopped staying up for that as they phased that kind of scheduling out. I went more toward taping it and watching it first thing in the morning because I've gotten a little bit older. But I always really enjoyed the Pac-12 as a league, and I'm sad to see it go. It's tragic what the presidents of that league allowed to happen with the various miscalculations they made. It's really a shame. And I hope that doesn't happen to the ACC now.
I was just going to have next. So what happens with the ACC? We know Florida State desperately wants out. They want out of that media rights deal. And if they're successful, like everything else, that's just going to open the door. And then who follows them? Because North Carolina, ironically, has their football program going in a good way, which is what's most importantly. And in addition to having a good basketball program, Duke, their football program is playing well right now. A team like Clemson, they have a football program that have to get the basketball side up. But Virginia, their football program is not much. So they're a great school and a great basketball program. But they seem like, I don't know where these teams will end up if they were to break apart, but that would be devastating to see happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Florida State wanting out, I think the price to get out on a fair, like what they should pay if they want out is something like $500 million. And that's what they should pay. because the ACC this is what they signed up for. They signed up for the ACC. They said, yes, we're good for 16, 17 years, whatever it was. It was almost 20 at the time they signed the deal. No one forced them to do it. They're alleging that it wasn't, the league hasn't held up. It's bull. It's bull. The league has been what it was before, and it's what it was now. It's not the league's fault that Florida State got a raw deal on the college football playoff. It's the playoff committee and the absurd structure of it. It's not. It's not the ACC's fault. And adding in Stanford and Cal and all of that, while I didn't agree with it at all, it was a vote. Florida State lost a vote. You don't get to say, I get to break my contract because I lost a vote. That's nonsense. So I don't agree with anything Florida State has said or done to this point, except that they belonged in the playoff. But that's has no impact on their suit to get out. If they want to get out, they should have to pay $500,000. And if they're willing to pay the $500,000, goodbye. But no one else will do that. No, Clemson's not doing that because it's dumb.
Yeah, absolutely. We're late, but I want to ask, if Florida State had gotten into the playoffs, who gets kicked out?
Alabama. Alabama is only in on reputation and conference affiliation.
Exactly. And they very well could win the national championship. They could. But if they play like they did with Auburn, Michigan will beat them by 30. I mean, who knows how they're going to play? But they have played enough games in this college football season to say that if they duplicate that effort, then Michigan will win the game comfortably. I shouldn't say by 30 because Michigan doesn't score like that. But they will win the game comfortably if they play the USF game or the Auburn game or any one of several other games, the A&M game, the Arkansas game. They were poor in all of those games, but they're Alabama. And that's the way this nonsense playoff system has run since it was put in place. Next year, will they be in because they're Alabama? Yes, because they'll have won the SEC and they'll have earned it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they get a pass. I agree. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Thank you, my friend. And Happy New Year. Look forward to seeing you again next week.
Happy New Year, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com will join us as we'll talk more basketball as a slate of Big Ten games tomorrow night. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, make sure you hook up with Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Good day, sir.
Hello.
How is it going?
It's good. I'm trying out a new mic. How's it sound so far?
I can't tell if it's connected. If I'm being honest, it
sounds like it might be. A computer mic still.
Yeah.
Did you go into your settings to make sure that mic is the one that it's picking up?
Yeah. It says the toner TC. But
what kind of mic is it?
Tap on the microphone just to make sure it's.
Oh
yeah, it's the microphone.
Hold it up close to your.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
It just sounds kind of like echoey. You know what I mean, Jim?
Yeah, it may just be the room he's in.
That could be the case.
But just keep it close to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds better when you talk. It's a directional mic, I would say, which means you have to talk directly into it. Man, that's like you got to hold it up high for a second. Let me see. I'm just looking at the mic itself.
supposed to be better for these MacBook Pros, but there might be some settings.
You see, there might be a way to clean it up a little bit.
Well, all right.
Maybe this
there's something. Well, there's two things. Number one, there's a little voice synthesizer box that you can use that I have, that especially for these remotes, that gives you a little bit of setting. And then also it matters a lot about the room you're in. If you're in a bouncy room, like a room that's not carpeted, there's going to be bounce. I used to, in the beginning, I took a box and had some foam inside of it and just put the box over top the microphone. Little mic box.
I did it for a while too before I got the really nice microphone that I use now.
But I'm sure you could probably hear a difference when I'm sitting here as opposed to when I'm sitting up here.
Yeah, but it's also way too loud, like overmodulated when you're that close.
Oh, yeah. And I wouldn't want to be that close. Well, or I would turn it down. But at the same time, I can't hear what I sound like.
All right, here we go.
Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday, a holiday Thursday in between Christmas and New Year's. Hope all things are going well with you and it's a good week of relaxing week. There, I got to come up with a name of this week, man. It's a dead week, but I don't want to call it a dead week surrounded by Christmas and New Year's. The week of calm, maybe something.
I like it.
Something. I don't have to come up with it. Tyler Smith from the Hoosier.com joining us now as Indiana getting ready to get back onto the hardwood tomorrow night, taking on a Kennesaw State team that should pose a nice little challenge for them. And I said earlier, I think that we will see Xavier Johnson play in this game, knock a little rust off before they get into Big Ten play. I don't have that written in stone, but I would be very surprised if he doesn't play. So expect that. Now, how much he plays, that's another discussion. I don't know if I doubt very seriously he's going to come out and play. He's not going to play 38 minutes. I can tell you that. But how much he does play, I would imagine that he starts. I don't see the point of bringing him off the bench. I don't know how they're going to work him back in, but getting him back in as quickly as possible is something that they want and need to do.
Yeah, if he does play in this game, even if it's a few minutes here and there, that's going to be important. As you said, knock a little bit of rust off. Any chance you get in actual game action is a lot different than practice. And even though he's been around a long time, that's important before that big game at Nebraska next week, if he's able to get even 10, 12 minutes. So we'll have to see how he feels if he does get in-game action. It's important. We talked last week about how that will impact the rotations, even in the win last game over North Alabama. The bench struggled. There was only one guy that was in the plus minus. There was a plus, which was Caleb Banks, +4. The starters were incredible. Malik and Trey were both +27. I think Khalil Ware was +18. So still figuring out some rotations, length of the bench, and how they're going to play with that. So Xavier Johnson back will definitely help that out.
Kennesaw State is a team that, of course, they're I think, a top 150 team, which is a challenge that is a challenging opposition. I know that it sounds like that it's not, but trust me, any team that's in that top half is a team that can win. You know, Florida Atlantic lost to Bryant earlier in the year, and then they beat Arizona. So it's more common ground in men's college basketball today than there ever has been. So this should be a good test for Indiana as they get back into Big Ten play. What are the things they need to work on the most, Tyler?
Hopefully a continuation of last game. You know, I don't expect them to make 12 of 24 from three, but if they can knock some down and feel like, you know, the confidence is building in that direction to be able to knock some down, that's going to be important. It's a bit of a trap game because you got the conference play coming up. It's also, you know, right around the holidays. They had a little bit of break. So they definitely don't want to come out flat and take Kennesaw State for granted and, you know, fall into one of those famous trap games that happen quite often for a lot of teams. That team's won 9 games. They do shoot quite a few threes. They make 9.5 threes a game. A couple good guards that can absolutely play if you're not filling out your defensive rotations the way you should. They can kind of go off and keep things close and interesting. So I think Indiana, if they can get Johnson in there, have a better night from the bench, the second unit, whatever that looks like, would be important going into Nebraska. But build confidence from last game. That would be a big deal for this team.
Kennesaw State coming off of a 79-70 loss to UNC Asheville, but that was behind the 22 points of Terrell Burden, who someone Indiana will have to focus on a little bit as well. But Kennesaw State is 2-4 away from home, which that does not bode well for them, especially coming into the Simon Scott Assembly Hall, although this will still be a student-less Simon Scott Assembly Hall, so you won't have the students back there, so it won't be quite as rowdy, I wouldn't think, but it's not going to be a picnic either.
Yeah, they're going to have to, you know, I keep using that phrase that Anthony Walker used, create their own energy, even though, you know, let's face it, Assembly Hall without students is still quite an atmosphere, but obviously not the same thing. And with this break, and again, it's got to be in the back of the players' minds, the Big Ten play is coming. So they got to really focus, create their energy for this game. One thing about Kennesaw State is they don't have a whole lot of height. Robinson 6'9", everybody else 6'7", and shorter. So Kel'el Ware should be able to feast down low. And if they are doing a good job taking him away, then other guys should be able to feast. Malik coming off a career night. And then obviously the guards finally knocking down some threes. Well, Malik had 4 of those. You know, if they double Ware, they should be able to swing the ball and attack from there. But take advantage of the lack of height from Kennesaw State.
Yeah, even if they do double Ware, I don't know that they have the size to really make the impact that a team like Kansas was able to do, or teams with some bigger boys. Because I talked about this earlier, this is something Kel'el Ware is going to face a lot this year. So Indiana and Kel'el are going to have to make sure that they have alternate plans on getting him to either score or becoming a big-time assist leader.
Yeah, for sure. It started with Kansas. You know, we've seen it the last several games. We're going to see more of it. Conference play. I think there's a couple good sets that Indiana runs that kind of gets the whatever big they choose with a swing opposite block, kind of more isolated from that side. So we'll probably see more of that. Could still get a double, but from that point, it's a quick kick out to an open shooter. And then if they attack the shooter, then the post is open again. So hopefully Ware can also work on what he's done from time to time with the kind of the quick move. I love how patient Malik Renew has been this year. The game has really slowed down. When he gets in the post, Kel'el Ware may not have that luxury at all times. If they double, if they come quick, so he's got to work on some quick moves once he gets that touch. And then obviously if guys continue to knock down shots, then teams will have to think twice about how they defend him anyway.
And what was it that allowed Indiana to just get off the schneid last game against North Alabama with shooting the three as much as they have struggled this year? Did the shots just go down?
It was some of that because, it's kind of a contagious game, which I feel like free throws are the same way. If you've team struggling from the foul line and it gets kind of tense in the gym and it's just like the pressure mounts with every miss, and then you start knocking them down and it's just, all right, it's a confident shot. So I do think they swung the ball really well in that game and got a few more open looks than normal. I mean, when they took 24 threes, so that's also quite a bit more than most games. But a couple early ones go down, and then obviously when your 4 is 4 for 4 and, leaving his pose up each shot and playing with that much confidence and that much swagger, it's can be contagious.
12 3-pointers made, like we said, and 50% from long range. Malik Renew leading the way on that shooting in that last game with 25 points on 4 of 4 behind the arc. So great confidence for him. As I watch him all the time in pregame warmups, he shoots 3-pointers like he's shooting free throws, man. They're just easy. These are just the basic jump shots for these guys. And I'm a little surprised it's taken this long for these shots to fall for Indiana, because I watch them in practice and they hit them. They just haven't gone down in games up to this point. And that was a game where they started falling. So I'm not sure if the confidence will just carry over or if just the accuracy is just honed in a little bit more. What we will certainly see, because it's something Indiana needs to continue. And I'm not saying that they have to hit 12 threes a game and at 50%, but you can't go 4 of 20 in a game either. So finding that happy medium is going to be a big part of the importance for Indiana's success this season.
For sure. Not going to win many Big Ten games with one of those terrible shooting nights. They just need to be decent from 3. I think you and I have talked about maybe a good number would be 7 or 8 threes if they can knock those down. Maybe some nights 6, and then some nights when you're lighting it up, maybe 9 or 10. But if they can just be decent from there, they've got enough about them, enough strengths about them in other areas of the game that they can keep up. And I think Big Ten play is going to be really interesting. Couple teams up top, a lot of teams kind of in the middle of the pack that any given night can go either way. I think Nebraska is going to be a team that's going to be really tough at home. They knocked off Michigan State at home, lost at Minnesota. Those are their 2 Big Ten games so far. So you're going to have a lot of that, and Indiana plays at Nebraska next week. So going to be a tough challenge.
Yeah, and I've talked that I think that Xavier Johnson plays in this game. How much, I don't know. But I do think that he will play, and that will be a sure sign of positivity for Indiana, as they need to get back to that as quickly as possible so they can have this full complement of offensive and defensive firepower going into Big Ten play as they travel to Nebraska next week. And it's going to take probably a minute to get Xavier back up to speed, though, because when you have the injury he had, not only are you not playing basketball, but you can do certain things to stay in cardio shape, but it is not the same as game shape. And you can't assimilate the game type of play that the body goes through if you're just riding a bike per se. So that's going to take a minute for him, I think, to get to that point where he needs to be.
Yeah, which just adds to the importance of having a chance to get into tomorrow's game. Hopefully that's the case. The good news for IU is, Gabe Cupps, even though he's more of a facilitator, not much of a shooter yet, he's worked with both units pretty well or quite a bit. So whatever Johnson's able to play, I think Cupps will be able to step into the other minutes, and whatever lineups are in, I think the offense will flow in a pretty similar way. So that'll be a good thing. And I mentioned last Thursday as well, my hope is they shrink the rotation to 8 guys whenever Johnson is really ready to go, and have Cupps, Walker, and Banks off the bench, and then you got the other guys, Gunn and Sparks, for foul trouble, or if there's a night where somebody's off and maybe you feel like they can give you a spark. But I would like to see the 8-man rotation.
We will certainly see. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com and follow all the content there put up by all the guys, including Tyler Smith, and give him a follow. Tyler, I thank you, man. We'll see you next week.
Sounds great.
Tyler Smith from thehoosier.com joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Chris Denari with the Pacers as they continue to roll on and be playing tonight. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Doubles.
What's up?
Doubles.
How are you doing today?
The Bears. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Well, Happy New Year to you.
Now, see, your mic sounds so rich.
You sound like you got a different setup for us than you usually do.
You're probably just using the laptop.
Yeah, I'm using my laptop because I'm in my hotel room. How does it sound?
I think it sounds good.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised. I'm like, man, that sounds full and rich, or big and rich.
Usually I'm hooked up to my Yeti mic in my office, but here I'm just hooked up, just in my hotel room.
Well, it sounds good. I think because it's a smaller room. I was just talking to Tyler there, and he just got a new mic, and I'm like, well, it may be your surroundings because it sounded kind of bouncy. He was probably in a room that was not a carpeted room.
I tell you what, it just kind of depends, because when I had a cheaper mic, I mean, I haven't changed anything about the room that I'm in, but now that I'm using this professional grade mic, I mean, you can't tell that I'm in a room without carpet.
No, your sound's very good. Dude, I remember the day our sound was god awful. I'm not kidding. It would be connection issues. It was this, it was that. And it was rough for a while.
Hey, I can't even imagine this. I mean, 40 years ago when I got out of college and started in radio in Columbus, Indiana.
How about 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we'd be sitting here, three of us in different locales.
You're doing radio from your own home, essentially.
Right.
But how much COVID contributed to this? A ton.
Oh, no question.
Sped it up. I think we would have eventually gotten there, but I think it forced people to adapt to this way of.
Well, not only did it put it into use, it made it acceptable. Because back in the day, and what cracks me up now is I work very hard on making sure the sound is good. I will hear stuff on network TV all the time. I'm like, that's crap. That sound is crap. You can't do better than that. Those are the ones that get me when they have bad sound. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys have no excuse.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you would have never seen a Zoom on the Today Show 5 years ago.
Oh, it would have been absolutely unacceptable.
Right.
And now it's like, oh yeah, no problem.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
How's Chicago?
Good. Had a good dinner last night.
Chop Shock, Market and Table, a part of the Wow Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. Thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Chris Denari, our good friend with the Pacers, the voice of the Pacers, joining us here today, live from Chicago. How is Chi-Town?
Chicago is warmer than usual this time of year. It feels like, a lot of times we're here and it's bitter cold, but not. It's rainy, foggy, but enjoyed a good meal last night. Went out to dinner with the head coach, Rick Carlisle. Had pizza at a place called Pequod's, which is, I think, if you look at their website, they're rated as the number 5 pizza in the country. It was deep dish. It was outstanding. So it's good. Second game of the road trip. Pacers got a much needed win on Tuesday night in Houston. It's been a tough road here the last couple of weeks after the in-season tournament. And so it was good to get that win against Houston. They'll try to get a win tonight here in Chicago. And then Saturday is the final game of 2023 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, New York Knicks in town. So, I was looking at the schedule, Jim, and I've missed you the last couple of weeks because of travel. We've been on the road, getting into cities at 2 and 3 in the morning. But from now until the All-Star break, which is mid-February, the Pacers one time have more than 2 days off between games. And so you're playing every other day with a bunch of back-to-backs, have a long road trip coming up in mid-January. So this is the grind of the season in this month and a half. You've really got to put your head down and go to work. And that's why I thought Tuesday's win was very important, because the Pacers had been, staggered a little bit. And to go on the road and get a win against a Houston team that was 12-2 at home, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and Tyrese Halliburton has just been a model of consistency. He is to the Pacers what I am not to this show. He is the star. Man, have you seen a player elevate so quickly? Not that he was not a good player, but he was not an all-star last year. You didn't see him and say, "Oh, that's an all-star."
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Now,
I mean,
he's an all-star.
Oh, no question, and he could be an all league player. I mean, this is a guy. He laughed about it in Vegas. He said, "Look, when I was coming out of high school, I was a no star. Most guys are 3, 4, 5 star. He literally had no offers. In fact, Jim, a lot of people don't know, one of his only few offers before he ended up going to Iowa State was at IUPUI in Indianapolis. I mean, that was one of his offers. I talked to Laval Jordan, the former Butler coach, who was at Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and he had been recruiting Tyrese. And then when he got the Butler job, he had to focus on retaining the Butler players and all that. And he goes, "You know what? I really wish I would have brought Tyrese to Butler." But this is a guy that has become, I think, on the radar of a lot of fans now because of what he did during the in-season tournament. And then, on Tuesday, he does what he's done 5 or 6 times this year and maybe a couple of times last year. It's a tie game with 63 seconds to play, and he hits a step-back 3 to give the Pacers the lead and ultimately the win. He did that here in Chicago last year at the United Center. We're putting together for the pregame show tonight a list of all of those shots that he's hit. The in-season tournament semifinal game in Vegas against Milwaukee, hit a shot against Boston in the quarterfinals of the IST. And Jim, what's funny is he said, "Look, I have never done that in my life. I really didn't do it in high school. I didn't do it at Iowa State, but now he's doing it." And it's been amazing to see his growth.
Well, it's because now he's got that thing. He's got confidence. He feels it. His teammates probably feed into it. And why not? Because 33, 10, and 7 on 7 made 3-pointers against Houston and a win down there, an important road win. Any win on the road's important, but an important road win for the Pacers as they're still on the road tonight in Chicago to take on the Bulls, which would be another win that they need to pick up. The Bulls with a sub 500 record at the moment early on, that doesn't mean a lot, but just one of those games you want to pick up. Don't want to drop this one.
Yeah,
keep the momentum.
Yeah, especially since they lost to the Bulls back in October. Pacers had a fourth quarter lead and sort of frittered it away. So Yeah, so there's no question about that. They're without Zach LaVine, but Bulls have played better without Zach LaVine. They were 5-14, and then he got hurt, and they've won 9 of their last 13. I mean, he's been in all the talk about trade rumors with the Bulls and all those kinds of things. So that's the one thing, Jim, that you find out about the NBA is even teams that don't have great records, they've got really good players. I mean, this is a team that has DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, who are 3 All-Stars, yet here they are under 500. So you really have to be focused each and every night because I don't care who you're playing and what their record is, they can beat you.
Absolutely. Brian asking, ask Chris who the Pacers should get in a trade to beef up the D. We know that this has been a year for the Pacers to run, man, score, try to I'm not saying they're trying to outscore teams, but that has been the MO, the modus operandi is to outscore other teams, and defense is not quite there. This is a younger team. Is there a guy that they should pick up that could help with that, or just keep working with what they have?
Well, I think they're always looking to improve the team, and so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, what's happened here in mid-December, that's when you start to see teams talking. There were a lot of teams talking down at the summer showcase or the winter showcase down in Orlando, which is similar to Summer League, but it's the G League where all the teams get together and then all of the front office executives get together. They can meet in person and talk about that. But I think what happens is a lot of teams want to see what they have through the first 25 to 30 games, and that's about where we are. I think one of the things the Pacers have talked about, not just for this year, but as they look to improve in the future, is to continue to get more athletic and get a little bigger on the wing. That's what tends to hurt them from time to time from a defensive end, why they give up so many points. If you look at where their issues are, it's defending big fours or stretch fours, guys that can put the ball on the floor, they can shoot the three, and they've got good size. The Pacers are trying to do that. Aaron Nesmith's done a really good job as an undersized player. I think he's a really good defender. Obi Toppin has size, but maybe is not the defender that you'd hoped he could be. So I think the Pacers are always on the lookout with how they can improve the roster and what type of players that they can get to bring in to make them better defensively. I will say that this is a really good group. They're very good. They're very close. They're very good together. They've got great chemistry. They are a very good offensive team. They're number 1 in the league in points and field goal percentage and assists. So you want to make sure that any addition that you make to your roster fits how the team is put together, not just on the floor, but how they get together in the locker room and those kinds of things. So I think all those things you have to take into account.
The break. When is the All-Star game?
All-Star game is February 18th. So we have a month and a half until All-Star weekend in Indianapolis.
That's forever, man.
Well, that's why I said these next 45 days. And you can tell me I've got a little bit of a cough, but you've got to fight through it because you don't have a lot of time off. You've just got to put your head down. And if you're a player, if you're a coaching staff, you've got a lot of work to do because you don't have a lot of days off. You don't have a lot of practice time. The games just come at you fast and furious. I mean, Pacers play tonight, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, then the following Friday and Saturday. So, you just have a schedule that is very compacted at this time of the year, and you've got to go to work.
Absolutely, and the Pacers continue to do that as they are a young team, but I can't say they're surprising anybody again this year because everyone got surprised last year, but they got better in the offseason, and those pieces are coming true to form with Obi Toppin has been shown to be what we thought that he would be, a great addition to this team. What do they need to take that next step up?
Well, I think, you don't have to be great defensively, but you need to be better. And I think the one thing is
you have to show up, right?
Yeah, you have to be better. Here's the thing: when you're playing an up-tempo brand of basketball and there's lots of possessions, there's going to be lots of points scored, right? These guys are too good. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a big college basketball fan. I watch as much as I can, but the level of play from the NBA to college is here to here. And for those watching on the video, it's a pretty good gap. And the gap is what guys can do offensively. They are so talented and can get their shot when they want. So it becomes very difficult to defend players like that. Then put into perspective, when you're playing a fast brand of basketball, there's just going to be more points scored. So as Rick Carlisle said, look, this isn't the old NBA where you put 105 on the board and say, hey, most teams are only going to give up 105 points. That's not true. If the Pacers are going to score 125 to 126, that's what they're averaging. Let's say you win games by a margin of 5, 6, 7 points per game. Well, you're going to give up 115 plus, right? So I think your mindset has to be a little bit different with how you approach from a defensive standpoint. I thought what was very impressive, Jim, is on Tuesday night when the Pacers had an 11-point lead that went away in the fourth quarter and they were down 2 with about 2 minutes to play. They outscored Houston 8-0. And down the stretch, they got 4 consecutive stops that they needed. So I think that's the mindset that you have to go into as you look at stops during a course of a game. And, some people might laugh at this, but the last 4 games, all 4 opponents have scored less than 120 points. And the Pacers have been giving up about 124. Over the last 4 games, they've given up about 113, 114. So you can say it's a small sample size, but that's a significant drop in points allowed. And if they can continue to do that, they'll continue to have more success.
All right. It's New Year's Eve. How was your Christmas? Were you on the road for Christmas?
We flew Christmas night. We are having our family Christmas tomorrow when I get back from Chicago. Our oldest son, his wife, and our grandson drove up to Louisville, where our daughter-in-law is from. They spent pre and Christmas there. Our son and daughter-in-law and grandson that live close to us, they spent Christmas with her parents. And so it just made a lot of sense for us to do Christmas tomorrow when I'm back and everybody, can get together. So looking forward to that. I did have FaceTime and Messenger last night with my brother who hosted in downtown Indianapolis all of our extended family. So they were all there and I was on the big screen.
Oh, lovely. Where you belong. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one doing the scheduling in the holidays and all of that stuff now. Not always as fun, but it gets the job done. Who says it has to be on a specific day, right?
No, exactly right. I mean, the key is just getting together. When you have married kids, you've got to share them with other. And that's one of the things I think, Jim, you and I talked back in Labor Day week. We rented a beach house down on Pawleys Island. And that's sort of the week that every year we're going to use as our get together, where we just have everybody together. We don't have to worry about conflicts. It doesn't matter when it is.
And let's see. So you got Chicago tonight, and are you on the road again before you come back?
No, we come back tonight, and then New York on Saturday night at home.
Looking forward to it. Happy New Year, my friend.
Okay.
Lots of wins, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, I will be home in my home office next week, so look forward to joining you then.
Can't wait. Chris Denari, the voice of the Pacers. Make sure you get them tuned in tonight as they take on the Chicago Bulls. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the
Boy, I am freaking cold. Shoo-doo. Shooby-doo. Oh, hey, did you get any of those 2 messages I sent you?
The Twitter message.
One was a Twitter and the other one was an email, I believe.
I did. I can pull up the Twitter one pretty quickly for you if you're wanting to.
Yeah, you know, whenever I send those to you, that's what that's for.
Well, you haven't mentioned it till just now, so.
Well, I know but that's why I send it.
Hold on a second. All right, here we go.
For just $299. That's right. Play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back here on this Thursday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Finishing up with there with our good friend Chris Denari, as he is up in Chicago. Pacers taking on the Bulls tonight. Brian pointed out all-star voting is open. So, yeah, get your votes in for Tyrese and whomever else you'd like to vote for. There's probably a higher percentage I wonder if there's a higher percentage of sports fans who vote in all-star games versus real-life citizens who vote in our elections. What do you think, John? He's busy doing some work.
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
I'm not too sure, honestly.
I'm not either. that just dawned on me. I'm like, now partly because it's easier because everything to do with sports voting is online now, but regular voting is going that way. Or at least you can mail it in, I guess. So there is that. A ton of games tomorrow night in the Big Ten, but not a single good one. Where did I had that schedule pulled up. Yeah. Now, I guess number 11, Illinois, might be on upset alert. They're playing Fairleigh Dickinson, team that upset Purdue last year. Kind of look to see if all right, here's the list of teams that are playing. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 Big Ten games tomorrow. Tomorrow, no, they're mostly in the evening. There is a midday game. Odd. Ryder is at Penn State. Kennesaw State at Indiana. Maybe the best game on the docket. Eastern Kentucky is at Purdue. Northern Illinois is at Iowa. McNeese State is at Michigan. Maine is at Minnesota. South Carolina State is at Nebraska. Jackson State is at Northwestern. And Fairleigh Dickinson is at number 11, Illinois. You notice that every Big Ten team that I mentioned is playing a home game. It's their last non-con game. They're all doing the same thing. They're all getting ready for conference play, which begins next week, which that's going to be exciting. When does Indiana and Nebraska hook up?
I believe it's January 3rd. Could be wrong.
You are correct. You are correct. See, are there any January 1st Big Ten games? There are not. So the first Big Ten, I know that there was 2 Big Ten games. Let's pretend that didn't happen. It just gets worked into this Big Ten play starting. I hate to remember resuming because they played 2 games, but all right, we're getting into conference play. Number 1, Purdue travels to Maryland. Maryland
could be a difficult first matchup for them, just considering how great they've been at home over the past couple of seasons.
Exactly. That's a place where they would certainly like to catch Purdue, maybe coming off of a little slumber over the holidays. Iowa travels to number 23, Wisconsin on the same day, and Northwestern goes to number 11, Illinois. So jumping right into it. Into play. That is on Tuesday the 2nd. And then on Wednesday, you've got Rutgers at Ohio State. Indiana is at Nebraska. Then on Thursday, Penn State's at Michigan State. Minnesota is at Michigan. Friday.
A lot of Peacock games, if you haven't noticed, by the way, in this early going.
I did not. I'll have to go back. But here's your matchup.
Fans love the Peacock.
Oh, yeah. Well, tonight's game for Indiana is on Big Ten Plus.
It is. That's right. Not even going to be on the regular BTN.
So there's that. So you got that going.
Enjoy the student broadcast. Usually is what that entails. Correct?
Yeah. There you go.
It's usually a student operated broadcast when BTN Plus is in the cards.
But the game of the week, Friday, number 11 Illinois is at Mackey in West Lafayette. So that'll be there's your great
could be a top
season
10 matchup by the time we get to that point in the calendar.
Well, it's close enough. Number 11 and number 1, and those are the 2 best perceived teams in the Big Ten right now.
There will still be one more ranking update between now and then, is what I'm getting at.
Yes, or there's that, and they're not going to lose their non-con game. I think John's got a little something.
Dickinson. I do have a little something for us. Do you want to hear from Jim Harbaugh, or do you want to hear a little Tom Allen from Penn State? What do you want here?
First, let's hear from Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, so Jim Harbaugh was asked about the NFL rumors and, the Chargers and that kind of thing. So let's hear what he had to say.
It's not different. It's the same NFL rumors again. How do you respond to that?
It's such a one-track mind. That's the way we're going about things. It's literally whatever day we're in, looking to get the most out of it, dominate the day. Then we'll go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and see if we can't dominate that day. It's a single-minded group, and it's very focused on just taking care of business today and see if we can't do the same tomorrow.
Jim, you've got a history in San Diego, and you finished your career with the Chargers, who have an opening right now. Just what's it like playing for them and for the Spanish family?
Yeah, just a very one-track mind about this game. Right now, just have fun with the family and the team and the players. It's like we're at the happiest place on earth, and we're gonna enjoy ourselves, and then get back to business. See if we can't dominate the day. Got some good meetings tonight, and we wake up tomorrow and practice. See if we can't dominate that day. I mean, this is like straight out of the Jackie Harbaugh playbook. One day at a time, one play at a time, and that's how we're approaching each day.
Is that the most?
Did he just say nothing?
He
Wow.
said absolutely
Dominate the
nothing. I
day.
mean,
What
you know,
else did he say?
one track mind. One
One
track mind.
mind. That's the other thing.
You know, it's a one track mind. He didn't even say nothing about nothing. It was the funny thing.
He literally
so
just spewed whatever he wanted.
Well, I don't know if he was purposely being coy or purposely being fishing a little bit. And by that, it is rumored that he has been offered a 10-year, $125 million contract by Michigan, $12.5 million a year. I'm assuming that would make him the highest paid coach in college football. The Chargers are rumored to be interested in his services, but they're also rumored to be willing to be a little more less frivolous with money that they might spend it. I think it's dependent upon if he were to win the national championship, I don't see him coming back. You would have come back. You will have beaten Ohio State the last 3 years. You will have won the Big Ten championship the last couple of years. And if he wins a national championship, I'm out of here.
Then you're a made man, though. I mean, you've conquered. I don't want to say conquered the world, like maybe the college football world, but you've conquered everything that Michigan hasn't been able to do over the past 20 plus years.
Yeah, but see here also for the next decade, you have to live up to what you did yesterday. Now, when you're making $12.5 million a year, you
don't have to be in the top four.
A year.
You don't have to be in the top 4 to have a chance at the national championship anymore beginning next year to be in the top 12. So it's a lot easier to replicate that success if you barely miss. So
there should not be a year where Michigan doesn't make the college football playoffs. But we'll see how that churns. Oh gosh darn it, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh man. Boy, I hate when I can't think of a word, but
it happens to the best of us.
Does college football follow the path of college basketball? And we continue to see the leveling out of teams where the teams that dominated for so long, like Alabama, they're still up there, but they're not where they were, which it's hard for anybody to stay at the top, but they were at the top for a while and they're still up there. They're playing for a national championship, but he also is the guy, he likes that challenge, man. He likes that challenge. And I think he wants to prove that he can do it at that level. And where would you rather live? Ann Arbor, Michigan, or San Diego, California? San Diego. Keep it classy, San Diego. Yeah, I've got to go. I don't know. It would be a lot easier at Michigan because you've just got everybody wanting to do everything to help you win. Money is never going to be a problem. They make so much stinking money, and they're going to continue to make money. So we shall see. We shall see. I'm looking forward to the college football playoffs, baby. I am torn. I've got to go back and look. I think I made what I thought at the beginning of the season was a stupid bet. I don't know why I did it. I think I bet $100 on Texas to win the national championship.
Oh my gosh, man! If you did that way back then, that could be a marvelous.
I'm virtually positive. I've got to pull it up figure out what app it's on, and how you find bets that you made months ago. But it's not the team that I'm pulling for to win the national championship. And it's not even the team.
It's not even the money.
It's not even the team I'm pulling for in their first game, though. They're playing Washington, man. I want Kalen DeBoer to win.
Tough. That is tough.
I get to be a fan, at least of Washington, at least for another, this rest of this season, at least until they join the Big Ten. Then that's over. Still be friends with Kalen DeBoer, but I will definitely, if this were next year. Well, you know, if they were a Big Ten team, I always tried to like to see the Big Ten teams do well. Speaking of Big Ten, Tom Allen, Indiana's former coach. This is about a week old, but for those of you that probably haven't heard it, a lot of people didn't. It kind of slipped through. But
and this is
Tom
an interesting
Allen's,
little tidbit. Somebody had asked Tom Allen about the 2-point conversion that Michael Penix converted against Penn State years back, and if he thought that it was actually, if it should have counted. And this is what Tom Allen.
Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
But you know, I get it. It depends on what glasses you're wearing. You know, I guarantee you that depends on who you're cheering for and which sideline you're on. Obviously, it was very contested, both sides, and reviewed and talked about to nauseam. But I got a big old picture in my office that shows that he scored, and it was a touchdown back then. That's probably still considered a touchdown today. They consider a touchdown 20 years from now. So, but bottom line is it was a great game, and that was a great way for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah, everybody calls it a touchdown, but it was a 2-point conversion.
I know. Like, I mean, I guess it looks like a touchdown if you don't have any context.
It's a score. It's a score. It's a score.
Yeah.
Still one of the great all-time photos. I mean, that's, if I'm AJ Moye, I've got the block on Boozer, gigantic in my house. If I'm Michael Penix Jr., I've got that thing.
Could you imagine, this is hypothetically speaking, could you imagine if Michael Penix is playing in the national championship with Washington, whether it be against Michigan or Alabama, and the game comes down to a 2-point conversion, and he does the exact same thing that he did against Penn State back when he was just a little tyke as an Indiana Hoosier? That'd be quite the way to end your career if you're Michael Penix. I'm sure he doesn't want it to be that, full of pressure, but it'd be a neat little story.
You know what? Absolutely, that would be that would cause a few strokes. So hey, don't forget, if you're following us on YouTube and you can't get us on radio, make sure you hit subscribe, please, and toggle the notifications button and the like button as well. And shout outs to all of our stations on the network down in Evansville on 97.7 ESPN, the Ref, always the right call. Up in the region, the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM WJOB, and over in Fort Wayne's sports station, only sports station, 1380 The Fan, where keep it tuned there. You can catch Caleb and Kenny in the morning, and the Sports Rush comes up right after Indiana Sports Beat Radio there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, I think Washington beats Texas. I think their offense is just going to be a little too much, but we'll see. Texas is there. They beat Alabama. That's the only reason that they're there. But then Alabama and Michigan, I think Alabama takes Michigan out, but hey, I thought
I'm very
Ohio
torn
State
for
was
that.
going
If
to be.
this were a normal, matchup where we don't have the Michigan scandal that's really filled up college football over the past season, I think it's easy to root for Michigan in this situation just because you want to see somebody other than Alabama win, but you also don't want the cheaters to pull it out. So I think I'd be more in favor of Alabama beating Michigan, and I normally wouldn't say that.
Robert says all the Big Ten games on Friday night, the players are all going to go home for New Year's and come back all hungover next week. I don't think so. I think they've already had their shot at going home, and that was Christmas. So they're back to stay.
And even if they are hungover, it would really only affect the January 2nd games, you would think, but you never know.
Absolutely, but plenty coming up tomorrow night. Lots of 9 of the Big Ten teams are in action tomorrow night, as we said. So we'll go over that more tomorrow and preview tomorrow night's game as well as a few of the others. And we'll pick up on the bowl games that happened today and that are coming up tomorrow and this weekend as we get closer and closer to the college football playoffs and more and more better bowl games as we go along. So looking forward to that. John Boy, who's on the program tomorrow?
Tomorrow for the last show of 2023, We will have Bob Kravitz. We should have Bob Kravitz, I should say. We'll have Zach Osterman. We'll have one of our friends from Boiler Upload, whether that be Travis Miller or Casey Bartley, and we'll see what else we can get scheduled together for you.
Perfect. I hope it sounds a great day for you guys. I hope you go out and have yourselves a good one. Enjoy it. Looking forward to it. I cannot thank you enough. As always, without you, we have no reason to be here. Big thanks to John for keeping us between the white lines as well. Thanks to all of our guests on the program today, Chris Denari for joining us, as well as Tyler Smith, and of course, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. That's going to wrap it up for us today here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Until tomorrow, I am Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.